8th grade history, Chapter 2, Section 3, The Plymouth Colony. God blesses the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims' situation began to improve as they started to build a relationship with the Indians. In late March, Samoset, who had learned English from fishermen on the coast of Maine, came to their settlement repeating, "Much welcome, Englishmen." A few weeks later, Samoset brought Squanto, who had visited England and learned to speak English there. Squanto remained in Plymouth, acting as a guide and interpreter and teaching the Pilgrims how to hunt, fish, and plant crops. In the spring of 1621, Massasoit, chief of the nearby Wampanoag tribe, paid a friendly visit to the Pilgrims. He and Governor Carver, Plymouth's first governor, signed a peace treaty which was faithfully kept until Massasoit's death in 1662. The First Thanksgiving. With the Indians' help, the Pilgrims caught much fish and game and had a good harvest of crops. In the fall of 1621, less than a year after their arrival, Governor Bradford, Plymouth's second governor, called for a 3-day feast, which is remembered as the First Thanksgiving. Indians joined the Pilgrims as they celebrated, feasted, heard the Bible read publicly, and gave thanks to God for his many blessings. Years later, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln helped establish Thanksgiving as a regular national holiday by proclaiming the last Thursday in November as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father. Establishing a successful colony. The Pilgrims were blessed with wise leaders. Miles Standish, who headed Plymouth's military defense force, and John Alden, who rose to high political office, were both strangers. Elder William Brewster, a separatist, served for many years as their pastor. Before coming ashore, the Mayflower passengers had elected John Carver to be their first governor. When he died in the spring of 1621, they chose William Bradford to take his place. A man known for wisdom, patience, and kindness, Bradford was highly respected by the residents of Plymouth. He held the office of governor for over 30 years. Bradford wrote History of Plymouth Plantation, published in 1856, long after his death, from which we get much of what we know about the Pilgrims. This classic is remembered as the first American history book. Under Governor Bradford's leadership, Plymouth prospered. In 1621, the Council for New England, the legal controllers of the territory in which the Pilgrims had settled, granted Plymouth a patent recognizing the right of settlement. By 1627, the Pilgrims had paid their debt to the English businessmen who had financed the founding of the colony. Though under the authority of the King of England, the Pilgrims could now virtually govern themselves. In the spring of 1623, Governor Bradford led the colony in an important decision. The Pilgrims' original charter had established a communal or common store system similar to that tried at Jamestown. This system had failed in Jamestown, where greedy men had spent their time seeking ease instead of working to produce food. But even in Plymouth, where most of the people had a deep Christian commitment, the communal system promoted a lack of diligence and efficiency. The situation threatened to destroy the colony in its infancy. To solve the problem, Governor Bradford divided the land among the colonists and made each family responsible for itself, establishing a free enterprise system. By the time of fall harvest, the wisdom of this decision was evident. This had very good success, for it made all hands very industrious, so as much more corn was planted than otherwise would have been by any means the governor or any other could use, and saved him a great deal of trouble, and gave far better content. The women now went willingly into the field and took their little ones with them to set corn, which before would allege weakness and inability, whom to have compelled would have been thought great tyranny and oppression. Americans learned from the experience at Plymouth that even among godly people, the free enterprise system is far superior to the communal system. Faith in God, a strong belief in the Protestant work ethic, and the exercise of the free enterprise system made Plymouth a successful community. Establishing political liberty. The Pilgrims gave America an early example of republican self-government. The signers of the Mayflower Compact were the original freemen of the colony. Each year, more permanent settlers could be admitted as free men. Periodically, all freemen met in a body known as the General Court to pass laws and conduct business of the colony. By 1639, the population growth and the founding of several new towns made it impractical for all freemen to assemble in the General Court. Instead, the freemen of each town elected deputies to act as their representatives in the General Court. The Pilgrims were able to successfully exercise representative self-government because they were dominated by scriptural concepts and they had great respect for the law and for their leaders. Establishing religious liberty. The Pilgrims also set an important example for religious liberty. In its early years, Plymouth had no established churches, which all colonists had to attend or support financially. The people were free to attend the churches of their choice. The Pilgrims were dominated by biblical principles, and their political and religious institutions were able to operate separately but in harmony with one another. The Pilgrims founded the Congregational Church, which became very important in New England. Having separated themselves from the Church of England, partly because of its form, the Pilgrims wanted an independent church in which each congregation governed itself and each member had the right to vote on the calling of a minister, the appointment of officers, and other important issues. Our Pilgrim Fathers. Plymouth grew slowly and never became a large colony. By 1691, it had become a part of the larger Massachusetts Bay Colony, but the Pilgrims planted a seed for the future. Plymouth became a shining light for the principles of political and religious freedom, which would eventually take root in America.